Good evening. I'm Nancy Bastefer, and I'm president of the DACC Annuitants Association. Marilyn Satterwhite, our executive director, and I are the co-chairs for tonight's candidates forum, along with the help of many other people. I do need to ask you to please turn your cell phones off. Your cell phone reception is wireless. If your phone is on, even on mute, it could interrupt the reception of the sound system here in the theater and cause distortion of the voices. If you need to make a call, please step outside the theater before you turn your phone on. We will remind you at the end of the evening to turn your cell phones back on. I always need that. DACC President Dr. Stephen Nacko would like to say a few words. Dr. Nacko.
Thank you, Nancy. Welcome to DAC. Welcome to an evening of discussion, debate, and also just having all of you exercising your civic duty and your interest in our government. We thank you for coming. On behalf of DAC's board chair, Dave Harvey, who's here, and yes, okay, we can clap for him. I'll lead the clapping for him. We're just pleased to have you here. And our sponsors tonight, if you can't see on the board, Danville Public Library, the Business Women of Vermilion County, the DAC Annuitants Association, and the Executive Club have all put this together, and a big round of applause for them and all of their work to arrange tonight. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Ms. Marilyn Satterwhite.
This year's forum will be in two parts. The first half, the first hour, will be the candidates running for office in the contested races, and they're sitting here on the stage with me. We'll then have a 10-minute break to allow time to change the seating on the stage and for you to speak briefly with any of the candidates in the lobby. The second half of the forum will be about the ballot question concerning the form of government that Danville will have after the election. Our procedure this evening will be, you need to get a card or two from the greeters, wave, greeter, on both sides and in the back, and clear in the back. Get a card and write your question that you want to ask. All questions must be submitted in writing. They do not have to be signed. One question per card. So if you've got 3 questions, please put each one on a separate card for us. On the card, you need to write the name of the candidate, or whether it should be addressed to the person supporting the mayoral form of government or the person supporting the city manager. And then the question you want answered. Please print or write clearly. Right now, in alphabetical order by office, each candidate is going to come to the center podium here where I'm standing and have a 5-minute presentation to address you. We have 2 timekeepers sitting right down here in front, and a timekeeper will stand when there's 30 seconds remaining and sit down when time is up. After the initial speeches, the questions that you have submitted will then be read to the candidates, and the person that it's addressed to will have 2 minutes to address it, and the other person will have 1 minute to rebut, if that's appropriate. Gary Hackler, who is Vice President and General Manager of WCIA, will be our moderator for this evening's forum. He's a lifelong resident of Vermilion County and grew up in Ridge Farm and has resided in Georgetown for the past 35 years. Gary has been in the TV business for 28 years and spent 8 years at WITY Radio in Danville. Gary, it's all yours.
Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you all for joining us here this evening. We are pleased to have WITY Radio broadcasting our forum live tonight. They will also post it on their website, and it will stay up until Election Day. That website is wityradio.com. and both audio and video streams will be available. Our timekeepers this evening are Norma Creedler and Cecilia Padfield. Thank you for your volunteering here this evening as well. We'll begin first with the Vermilion County Clerk, The race for Vermilion County Clerk, Kathy Jenkins, the Republican candidate.
Good evening. I would like to thank the businesswomen of Vermilion County, Danville Area Community College Annuitants Association, and Danville Public Library Executive Club for hosting the forum this evening. A lot of time and preparation goes into putting this together, and we certainly appreciate it, and thank you for your efforts. I would like to start by reporting to you a successful first term as county clerk. I ran on 3 specific areas that I felt some needed changes, and those specific areas I were able to meet. The cross-training was maximizing the skills of the staff and enabled us to do more with less. No one has to worry about coming back from vacation or days out or whatever reason and face a mountain of work. There is more than one person who can well handle the job responsibilities, ensuring that things are taken care of while others are out. The second one was the increase of wages while holding bottom line on the budget dollars. Through voluntary attrition and cross-training, I was able to increase pay for the employees to the level that we can attract and retain the skills needed to do the job overall without increasing budget dollars. And the third was technology. In dealing with outside vendors to scan documents in my office, it was quite pricey. So I decided to hire part-time scanners. This was a win-win situation, as we have managed to scan almost all of the many years of birth and death certificates at a fraction of the cost to the taxpayers. We are currently scanning 1920s birth certificates and hope to have all of the other certificates scanned at the end of my second term. We have scanned all the initial voter registration cards, which enabled us to reduce significantly our need for storage, which included space, money, and many filing cabinets needed prior to implementing the scanning. Knowing that these important records will be retainable indefinitely was something that I strived to do in 2014. We have implemented a new tax system which allows us to work more efficiently and effectively when dealing with the entire tax cycle. It positively impacts all areas that deal with the tax process. Moving into our third year of implementation, we're looking to see even more improvement gains for the county by automating processes that were previously manual. Voter registration elections are ever evolving. With state statutes and regulations to follow, we see the ever-increasing need for community involvement as election judges. As a generation change, many of the judges are retiring. It's a long but rewarding day, and many of our judges have done this for over 30 years. Innovation and changing our mindset regarding the election process is being looked at from the state level on down. We want to play a key role in ensuring that we preserve the election process that makes our country so great. Our ability to look at processes differently, as well as making sure the voters have easy access to what will work. Currently, you can vote by mail. You can vote early 6 weeks prior to the election, and then your polling place on Election Day. We visit the nursing homes so that those who want to vote have the opportunity. We will send an application directly to your home for your convenience simply by calling our office and requesting such. The office staff work to make your experience with us as pleasant as possible, and they are a great group to work with. Cybersecurity is this past year has proven to be challenging in the election department due to the threats of hacking. Our office has been proactive as a state of Illinois and worked to increase the overall security of the internet connections. Our in-house IT department has done an amazing job of working with us to ensure that your voting experience is safe and secure. The state of Illinois has provided grant funding for a statewide cybersecurity initiative, and we are monitoring activity constantly. Moving forward into my second term, I would like to continue with the scanning process so all the old documents are preserved. If we continue the way we're going, I'm anticipating this will be completed in about a year. Initially, that was a huge task, but we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. As a member of the Advisory Committee for the State Board of Elections, as well as a member of the Illinois elected officials and the Illinois County Clerks, I see the need to stay involved at a state level, working to change, update some of the laws and statutes to benefit the taxpayers. The Clerks organization has a strong presence at the state level, and we need to continue that until the needed changes are made. In working with the townships and villages and cities throughout the county, we recognize a great need for education and continuity. We will be implementing our first training class in October 2018 for those in the county that deal with budgets and levies. The county-wide confusion as to how things were done versus how they should be done was evident. This class was well received, that we are looking to do the same in other areas so that we work closer with the townships, villages, and cities, ensuring they understand the processes and assist them and make them sure the levies are appropriate amounts. The need for additional training and education within the village, towns, and county is great. We want to play a huge part in doing that. I ask for your support and look forward to serving another term as your Vermilion County Clerk. Thank you so very much for coming. Please feel free to talk to me after the meeting or call and stop by my office anytime.
Thank you, Kathy. Now the Democratic candidate for Vermilion County Clerk, Mary Catherine Roberson.
Good evening, everyone. I also would like to give thanks to the businesswomen of Vermilion County, to the DAC Annuitants Association, to Danville Public Library, the Executive Club, to co-chairs Marilyn Satterwhite and Nancy Bosdorfer, and also to all of you for coming to hear from us tonight. I'm thankful to be on this stage again. I remember standing here as Vice President of Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society as a student. DAC is where my quest into politics began, so I think it's fitting that we continue it here this evening. I'm a lifelong Vermilion County resident. I was born and raised in Danville, the daughter of a District 118 educator and a General Motors worker. My family has been active in the community for decades. My great Aunt Margaret Ward was a teacher and a principal for District 118 for over 40 years, and I've been honored to continue the legacy of community service and education that they began. I'm a proud DAC graduate. I graduated magna cum laude here with a major in political science and a minor in Spanish. I continued my education at DePaul University in Greencastle, Indiana, graduating cum laude in those same fields of political science and Spanish. After graduation, I came back to DAC, but this time as an instructor. I taught English as a second language. Now, this was my first time in the classroom. Although I taught as a substitute teacher previously, this was the first time in my own classroom. In my 5 years as an English language instructor, I taught over dozens of students from over 20 countries around the world. I received the Part-Time Faculty Award in 2015, Part-Time Faculty of the Year Award in 2015. I became a citizenship instructor in 2016 to help my international students navigate the difficult paperwork and to learn the history and the civic material necessary to become American citizens and access their rights to this great democracy. I have since served as a program coordinator, site coordinator for Project Success of Vermilion County, which provides after-school and summer programming for our area students. As the administrator of this site, I'm responsible for overseeing the budget, for maintaining confidential student records, grades, reporting data both to my supervisors and to the state, as well as outreach to teachers, administrators, parents, and guardians. As the supervisor of my site, I'm responsible for ensuring that my staff and I are providing quality academic support and enrichment opportunities for at-risk students of all backgrounds. For me, a large part of being an educator and an advocate for our students means encouraging them to use their voices. I encourage them to look back at the people who inspire them personally, as well as the leaders who inspired their cities, their states, and their countries to strive better and to do better. I urge them to emulate those people, to use their talents for the greater good, and to encourage others to do the same. These aren't ideas that can be confined to a classroom. We have to take our desire to make change and apply it to the real world. I decided to do just that. I reached out to Vote Run Lead, an organization that trains women to run for office. I attended their training last November, I came home, and I filed to run for Vermilion County Clerk. After years of my own time encouraging people to register and to vote, after helping family and friends find their polling places, helping people understand the difference between a general election, a primary election, after reaching out in the community and hearing people who felt that their voices didn't matter, I decided to use my own talents for the greater good of this county. As a student of political science, I've studied the democratic process, its history, and its evolution. As a citizenship educator, I've helped others learn and understand that process. I understand the hard work and sacrifice that earned us the right to vote, and I'll protect that right against any attempts at suppression. I believe our democracy works best when everyone participates. Our voter turnout has been less than 50%, which means we aren't living up to the ideals of a government of the people and by the people. My campaign has aimed to change that. We're knocking on thousands of doors in the county, finding people who haven't been voting and asking why. Across the county, when we talk to residents, we meet people who want to feel represented. They want to feel like their votes matter. They want easy access to their polling place. They want to know that if they go to their polling place that they'll have the correct ballots at each one. They want fair elections. A county clerk who is visible, accessible, and who will put in the work necessary to ensure that everyone's voice is heard, protected, and counted. I am that candidate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Catherine. The next race that will be featured is that for Illinois District 104th Representative. And addressing us first this evening, the Democratic candidate, Cindy Cunningham.
Hello, and thank you to the sponsors. I won't name you all for the sake of time. I'm Cindy Cunningham, and I grew up the daughter of a union plumber. When I was a little girl, my dad took my sister and I to see the John Hancock building, and he pointed at it, and we looked up, and he said, "I built that." And I said, "Wow, Dad, all by yourself?" He said, "Yeah, honey." Wow. For years, too many probably, we believed that. And finally one day I said to him, "Dad, that's an awful big building. How did you do that all by yourself?" And he says, "I had some friends that helped me too." And in fact, he did. In truth, he was a member of Plumbers Local Union 130 up in Chicago, and iron workers, electricians, laborers, carpenters, they all worked on that building. But today, and to this day, when I see that building, I think to myself, my dad built that. And I tell anybody who will listen to me that my dad walked the beams on the penthouse of the John Hancock building, and I'm so proud of that. I brag to everybody. I love having that legacy as part of who I am, that legacy of hard work, of teamwork, and yes, of unions. It's part of my identity, and it's part of the identity of the state. It's who we are, and it's how we have achieved so many of our successes. So I was totally infuriated when Bruce Rauner called on those of us who serve senior citizens in the community to betray that legacy. He told us if we wanted to be paid, we had to ask our legislators to work with him and cut off the protections that our unions have. My husband's a police officer. He is a member of the Fraternal Order of Police. My daughter is a union nurse. My dad was a union plumber, as was my grandfather and my uncle. I truly believe that the work that we do as unions is what keeps this state good. And he wanted me to betray that legacy. He and his agency directors told us over and over again that they would pay us during the budget impasse if only we would betray that legacy. And we did not do that once, not once. And he was unsuccessful. Not one of us asked a legislator to betray the unions, and we never will. We took out loans. My husband and I depleted our savings accounts. We went without paychecks. The people that own the businesses that I work for, they mortgaged their homes, also that we continue to provide services without payment from the state of Illinois. And you know what Bruce Rauner did? He doubled down. He started giving us more audits, sent more inspectors to make sure that we were honoring all the points of our contract without paying us. That's how that went for 2.5 years. All of this hostage taking and all of this effort to break the unions were extremely expensive. Despite the lack of payment to the state's vendors, money was flowing out of the Capitol faster than it was coming in. We ended up with $16 billion in unpaid bills. We racked up $1 billion worth of interest during the budget crisis. But finally, a budget was passed, and Bruce Rauner vetoed it. He vetoed funding for our schools. He vetoed funding for our home and community-based services. He vetoed funding for our prisons and for our local communities because he would settle for nothing less than the total destruction of our state and the total demise of our unions. But the General Assembly overrode his veto. Despite that, so we have a budget now, but despite having a budget, many people lost their businesses, anti-violence programs were shuttered, and gun violence across the state escalated. Lives were lost because of this. Seniors entered nursing homes because the home-delivered meals they needed to be able to eat were defunded, and they had to have a way to eat. They entered nursing homes, and all of this was for nothing. Bruce Rauner and Donald Trump do not represent our values. In our area, we value working together for the common goals. We value our citizens. We value our seniors and the experiences and the stories that they have to tell. We believe that women matter just as much as men. We don't discriminate based on a person's religious beliefs, sexual orientation, or the color of their skin. In our area, everyone matters. During the course of my service in my church, as a volunteer firefighter and EMT, as someone who worked on budget negotiations within the General Assembly, I never asked anybody what party they belonged to, because that doesn't matter anymore. Our working people and us deserve common decency and not partisan politics. I'm Cindy Cunningham, and I hope I'll win your vote.
Thank you, Cindy. The next candidate to address us this evening is the Republican candidate, Mike Marin.
Thank you, Mr. Hackler. Thank you to the sponsors and organizers. Thank you to my opponent for being here. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here and participating in this very important event. We are at a very challenging time in our state's history. Political partisanship and rancor have divided us and have caused great damage to this wonderful state. We have dug ourselves into a severe fiscal hole, and we face some pretty severe challenges ahead of us. But I'm not afraid of big challenges. Big challenges need to be met with big ideas, and we can do just that. The road back really isn't as far as what we think it is. First of all, we just need some common sense reforms. We need to tighten the belt a little bit and live within our means. We need to set priorities and be very fiscally disciplined until we right the ship. After that, we need to invest in things like technology that will allow our state government to function in a much more efficient manner and a transparent manner so that the citizens can have ready access to money, descriptions of money that their elected officials are spending so that there can be some accountability as well. We need reforms like workers' comp reform. We need redistricting reform. And we need property tax reform that won't hinder local school districts or local governments from doing their responsible jobs. One thing that we can do for property tax relief is commit to funding education on a state level. Once we do that, we can lower property taxes and we can lower tuition rates. We can keep places like Danville Area Community College and Parkland College affordable, and we can be more competitive to attract students into our state instead of seeing our young people leave the state. One thing that is a great economic opportunity for this area is the fact that we sit on the most productive farmland in the world, right here in the 104th District. If population and economic trends continue, we will have to double our food production by the year 2050 just to keep pace. That is a huge challenge, but it's also a huge economic opportunity for us right here in Illinois. So we need to enact farm-friendly legislation and make sure that our farmers are competitive on the world market. Another thing that we can do is that we can invest in our transportation infrastructure because of the fact that we sit at the crossroads of America. We have miles of interstate highway. We have rail lines that run to both coasts, to a big inland port in the city of Chicago. And we've got the best inland waterway system with the Ohio, Illinois, and Mississippi River. We can get our products to market cheaper and in a more environmentally friendly way than our competitors around the world, and that's a huge advantage. But we have to be willing to make the needed investments in our transportation infrastructure. We also need to continue to invest in higher education because to meet the challenges of the future, we need to rely on top-notch research at places like the University of Illinois, who are doing cutting-edge research in genetics, supercomputing, data analytics, and engineering. It's a great resource for our state, but we just need to make sure we act responsible to put ourselves in a position to maximize that opportunity. We can do all of these things, but we have to do it together. There are going to be times when we disagree, and there are going to be times when we have to stand our ground. But we need to get together and start talking to one another and have those conversations to find out what we can agree on and move forward from there. We can do it. We did it in Vermilion County. That was the model. It was highly successful. We tackled some big problems like where our county offices were going to be housed for the next 100 years. And we've got a wonderful, beautiful old federal courthouse that is the long-term solution to our problems. That's just an example. Obviously, the state of Illinois has much larger and more complex problems. But if we get together, we talk to one another, we find common ground, we can figure out big solutions, and we can move this state forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. The next race is for Illinois District 15 representative to the United States House of Representatives. And we will hear first from the Democratic candidate, Kevin Gaither.
Thank you all so very much for coming out tonight. Yes, my name's Kevin Gaither, and I'm running to be your next representative here in the 15th District. It's 33 counties, and today I drove through probably about 12 of them, and I got a flat tire in the middle of them. So nothing was going to stop me from getting here to answer your questions. That's the dedication I have, and I know a number of us travel these roads every day. They're just terrible, and that's one of the things we need to fix is a massive infrastructure plan, not just roads and bridges, but our waterways. We need broadband access in every single community in this district. So a little bit about where I come from. I grew up in the district in Sullivan, Illinois. Some of the richest farmland in the entire country. I actually weeded the beans. I played pipe organ in 2 churches. I've been very invested in every community I've ever lived in. Now I live in Charleston, and I've been very dedicated to making a difference in that community as well. I see the problems wherever I go. I've been in every single community in these 33 counties, and a lot of them are struggling, just like here. We have problems in our education system. We have problems in our infrastructure. We have problems in every single level. Everybody says how wonderful the economy's doing. Well, you go out and ask, hardworking Americans throughout the district, and they'll laugh at you. They'll laugh because, and this is the same thing that I saw during the Obama years as well. They said how great the recovery was going, but not here. We've been left behind. Both parties have really been part of this issue. We have been left behind by both parties. And so that's why I decided to get into this race because, wherever I've been able to make some headway. It doesn't matter if it was with Republicans or Democrats because what people deserve is people getting and working together again. I saw just the disintegration over the course of my life, I'm 42, of people working together for common purpose. I mean, that's what my faith says that we should be doing. We shouldn't be using religion. We shouldn't be using politics to divide us. We should be using these things to bring us together and doing what's best for our neighbors, our brothers and sisters, and our entire community. We need to be doing something for early education because that's the bedrock for an entire child's entire future. It's an economic and national security issue, education. And our schools are crumbling. When I was in high school, I actually fought to get a referendum passed so we had a new school built in Sullivan. These are the things that I know that Democrats have been doing a long time, but Republicans also work to solve problems. I just think Democrats do a little bit better job because, I don't see career politicians like my opponent getting out and actually listening to people, answering their tough questions. The part of representation that's so important is actually getting out and seeing on the ground what's happening. That's what I've been doing for 17 months now. And I tell you, I've been learning a lot. I've been learning a lot because the people have the answers. That's what you can absolutely guarantee is I will continue being out in every one of these communities and learning from you and seeing what is going wrong and what's going right. Because we need to lift everybody up because this economy needs to be better. A couple of different things. Our waterways are in dire straits, right? Some of these reservoirs and waterways have not been dredged in a long time. So we need to really focus some resources and funding into the U.S. Corps of Engineers and get that job done so that we protect these vital resources for the next generation. And this is also an economic issue because a lot of companies won't invest in an area if they don't have the water resources to operate their businesses. Some businesses need 1 million gallons of water a day. We need to get that job done. Same thing with broadband internet access. Who wants to invest in a community where they can't even access the global market? They're not going to do it. So we need to do those investments today. It's an investment in our future and in our kids as well. So we also have, like everybody knows, we have this amazing farmland. We have some of the best farmland in the entire world. We should be actually putting people back to work with that. So the governor finally did sign the Industrial Hemp Act, and I'll tell you, industrial hemp isn't the stuff that makes you high. You'd have to actually smoke a whole bushel of that to do that. But this is the stuff that you find in CBD oils that actually help with PTSD, inflammation, anxiety, and depression. That also all the fibers. We could be putting everybody back to work and become the export capital of the world for industrial hemp. It's a huge opportunity, and I can't wait to answer your questions today. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight, and for our sponsors. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Representing the Republican candidate, John Shimkus, is Deb Detmers.
Good evening. Thank you for being here tonight. I want to thank the sponsors as well, but more than that, I want to thank all of you. You all have other places that you could be this evening, and democracy only works if we all work together, so thank you for being here. I am not John Shimkus. I am Deb Detmers. I work for Congressman Shimkus, and I'm sorry that he could not be here this evening, but I do want to thank you for putting up with listening to me. I'm not as good as he is. I will tell you when it comes to questions, I'm going to be honest with you. If I don't know the answer, I'm going to tell you I don't know the answer, so I'm going to be as honest as I can tonight. It's been my honor to work for Congressman Shimkus for quite some time. He is, if you don't know anything about his background, he is a West Point graduate. He is a retired Army Lieutenant Colonel, Ranger trained, and that really defines his character. He's a Christian. He is very active in his local church. He's an elder. His wife teaches music at the local Lutheran high school. Parents to 3 children, all now in either working or in college. As we've traveled this district in August, the one thing I think that you can really see out there is that the economy has changed. The economy is better. We did not go to one single business in our district during this break that was not looking for people, not one, including in little tiny towns like Albion, Illinois, that were looking for Champion Labs, that could hire 45 off the street right that day. There are people looking for businesses. The economy is better and the tax cuts are working. The median household income in Illinois 15 in this 33 counties rose from $49,000 to $52,000, an increase of $2,600 or 5.2%. Nationally, the median household income rose 2.6% during the same period. And I know there'll be questions, and that some people say that the tax cuts disproportionately benefit the wealthy, but the share of federal taxes by millionaires actually increased under the new tax code, and the middle income taxpayers received a larger percentage of reductions than the wealthier taxpayers. If you're not sure of that, the Tax Foundation's online calculator, you can go and put in your own information and find out. A family of 4 with 2 children earning $62,000 a year will owe $179 in federal income taxes, $1,700 less than they did in 2017. A single mother with 1 child earning $39,000 a year will owe $25 in income taxes, $1,200 less than she did the previous year. Those who itemize their medical expenses, teaching supplies, charitable contributions, and up to $10,000 state and local taxes will still be able to do so. Through the top 90%, up from 80 of Illinois constituents will benefit most from the double standard deduction. NAFTA, we have a new NAFTA that more car and truck components are going to be manufactured in North America, a substantial boost from the old NAFTA limits. 40% of the work on car or trucks will be done by workers earning at least $16 an hour, and this is the strongest labor provisions of any trade agreement. Canada, in return, has agreed to loosen its protections on the dairy industry, which were very stringent, giving the greater market share to U.S. dairy farmers. And the largest dairy-producing county in the state is in the 15th Congressional District, in Clinton County. Other things that my boss has specifically been working on this year and had some success with is the brownfields reauthorization, which was included in the fiscal year 18 omnibus, the Safe Drinking Water Act reauthorization, which is passed out of his committee, which is the first time since 1996. That was included in the water infrastructure bill, and in opioid legislation that he's particularly proud of. Met with a lot of families in this district that have been impacted by this opioid epidemic, including I have friends who have lost children to the opioid epidemic. My husband's a pastor. He's buried 3 people in our congregation in the last 12 months from the opioid. And so that's very strong legislation, helping to put some more money back into Illinois and into the local area. I know you guys have a local group that's very involved in that problem. On a local level, we've had success with DAC and the VA. We straightened the property line out here, and we're able to both a win for DAC and a win for the VA. And the federal courthouse, which we are very proud of. That was a building that was just sitting basically empty. And I don't know what would have happened to that, but we were able to, working with the county, working with Mr. Marin, we were able to get that transferred over, so that now belongs to the county, and it's full of life again, and it's a great thing to see. So I thank you for having me here and putting up with me. If you have any questions, I'm going to do my best to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. Do we have our first set of questions? Our first set of questions is for the 104th District Illinois representatives, and we will begin with Ms. Cindy Cunningham. As the population of Illinois ages, there will be more senior citizens living in poverty who will need assistance. What is your plan to address this issue?
Well, this is a huge issue because it's really not possible for most of us to save up enough money to live on retirement savings and to pay for our growing needs with medical care. So what we need to do is take a very measured approach and make sure that the majority of the care that we provide is done in the home and in the community, and it's done on a cafeteria basis instead of sending someone to a nursing home where they get everything that they could possibly need. So we need to reinvest in the community care program. We need to make sure that there are adult day centers available across the state in every community so that people can get outpatient medical care rather than inpatient medical care. And we need to make sure that we maximize the funding that we get from the federal government through our Medicaid match. There are serious problems in the state now with obtaining that match. But that's a start.
Mr. Marin?
You know, one thing I think that needs to be addressed, because this is a huge problem, you see, a very rapidly aging population, and especially in the 104th, it's a population that does have it's low income. And one thing that we've studied is affordable housing projects using tax credits, private investor money, to build houses, and that could be catered to seniors. I think that's a huge problem of having quality housing in the area, and that is something that we have, on the county level, tried to help facilitate. We haven't, in my time there, I wasn't quite successful at moving any projects, but we at least started the conversation, and it's something that needs to happen. Because there is a need for quality housing for seniors, which is a huge part of the problem and the solution.
Thank you. Our next question is for our county clerk candidates. Should the Board of Election Commission be abolished and their duties combined into the county clerk's election office? And we will begin with Kathy Jenkins.
I will be honest with you and tell you that I have been so busy the first term, I've not even thought of anything like that. I think we're always open to new ideas, and I think moving forward, we always have to look at different ways of doing things, whether that means combining offices or not. That is something that, it has to be talked about. There's more than just doing that to combine an office. I think you have to talk about your demographics and the people in the community and that kind of thing, and the jobs available. So I don't think it's an easy answer. I think it's something that always should be discussed. I'm not so sure that it's an easy answer either way.
Thank you. Mary Catherine?
I would agree that it's not an easy answer and not one that I would give a definitive yes or no answer to this evening. But what I can say is we've been out talking to people in the county is that there is some confusion about the two offices, that people who live in Danville are included in the people who are served by the Vermilion County Clerk, and they're served by a different office. And there's been some confusion as to even where to vote or who to ask questions of. So I think that would help with some of our population if we combine that office. But again, I wouldn't want to be too rash in making that statement. I think that it's important that we would talk to the voters and see what they would be, which way they would want to lean. But I think that it would help the general public if we had one place where we could go to ask these questions and to make sure that the city of Danville was being served as consistently as the rest of the county.
Thank you. The next questions, and I will do two, are for the Illinois District 15th representative to the United States House of Representatives. It's on several people's minds here tonight why Mr. Shimkus is not here.
From the very beginning of when we first got this invitation, we explained that we weren't sure the congressman could be here given of his duties in Washington. So I apologize, and he wasn't able to be here.
Kevin?
Okay, it's really tough. I get it. Really tough to come out and see people and be asked some tough questions. I get asked them all the time, and I, with 21 years under your belt, you would think you'd have a laundry list of things you could actually run on in a re-election bid. One of them would be that he said he would run for 2 terms, and he didn't. Just a couple things. I would say it's so important to really address the opioid epidemic. But one of the worst things you can do is cut health care for Americans, especially in our district, which has such low access issues and high out-of-pocket expenses. And we have to really be honest as elected officials and candidates when we talk about that issue. Thank you.
Thank you. I will come back to that race and go back to the race for county clerk. Nope, I'm sorry, my mistake. This is for the Illinois District 104th House of Representatives. If elected, will either of the candidates be voting for Mike Madigan as Speaker of the House? Yes or no, and why? And we will begin with Mike Marin.
I don't think I'm going to need the 2 minutes for this one. No.
Mrs. Cunningham?
I am going to have to see who's running for Speaker of the House before I can make up my mind who I will vote for.
Thank you. Back to the Vermilion County Clerk's race. And we will begin with Mary Catherine Roberson, my apology. What are your ideas for increasing voter turnout and civic participation?
Thank you so much for that question. My campaign has been committed to knocking on doors in every corner of the county to make sure that we are reaching out to the people who haven't been participating in our democracy. We are working with young people. I knocked doors with a 16-year-old on Sunday who cannot wait to turn 18 and be able to vote. So if we can give our young people the energy and the motivation and let them know that it is their duty to participate in democracy, that it can be fun to participate in democracy, and that it is necessary to participate in democracy, showing them how hard we have fought and how we must fight to keep those gains, we have been bringing people to the table every single day to increase voter participation, and I will continue that as your Vermilion County Clerk.
Thank you. Kathy?
We currently now go to the schools and organizations. We sign up people that want to be signed up. We have knocked on doors. We have went to the fairs. We have register when we can register, and you can always call our office, and we've even done home registration. When someone can't get out, they call our office, and we'll go out and register them at home. So we have continued to do that, and we'll continue to hit the schools every year and more of the organizations throughout the county.
Thank you. Back to the Illinois District 15 Representative, United States House of Representatives race. What can be done to help keep our children safe? And we will begin with Deb Detmers.
I think that's a very wide question, and I'm not sure where to start with that. I think one thing is on the internet, my boss was the first person that introduced a specific, it was called .kids. Now, it ended up not working, but I think it was the forefront of a lot of this movement towards keeping our children safe on the internet. That is certainly one thing. When you hear these stories of human trafficking, and we've had several seminars on that topic, and what happens with children, it's a pretty mind-blowing thing. I think for safety, obviously you have to support your local law enforcement, and we try to do that as best we can. We do work with for the COPS grants and the firefighter grants, and to be able to provide the local law enforcement what they need to do their job as best they can.
Thank you. Mr. Gaither?
Yeah, this is one of the most important issues to tackle, keeping our children safe. We start with, funding early education. We start with health care, making sure that every child gets has quality, affordable health care. I think the real issue here is probably gun violence, which is a real issue here in Danville, but across the country. I don't think we get there by banning weapons, but what we do need is more accountability. I think in our criminal justice system, we criminalize poverty, we criminalize mental health, and we criminalize drug addiction. And if we actually focused on violent criminals and make sure that they stay behind bars, people like my friend that was murdered, and I had to testify in the murder trial, she would still be here. That's where we should be focused. Thank you.
Thank you. Back to the Illinois District 104th Representative race. Are either of you prepared to go against the party line to represent the people of Illinois? And we'll begin with Cindy Cunningham.
The reason why I'm running is for the people of the 104th District. I'm not running because I'm a Democrat and I have a point to prove. I'm running because our people have been left behind. We have gun violence in our community. We have one of the most endangered rivers in the country. We have one of the highest unemployment rates. And none of this is being addressed. The things that are problematic in our community can be helped, but we need to have somebody in our office who is going to be willing to pass bills that will help the people of our community. And if that means crossing party lines, of course I will do that.
Thank you. Mr. Marin?
I think the 104th District, back to State Representative Bill Black and Chad Hayes as well, has always had a reputation as a streak of independence. And I think our county here, Vermilion County, has always kind of had that reputation. It's something we're proud of. And, you know, I'm proud to have that mantle as well. I would not hesitate crossing party lines. I think some of the biggest problems that we have are created because neither party wants to talk to one another. And, you know, a lot of times through conversations I've had with local people, local friends in the other party, you realize that you got a lot in common and you agree on a lot of stuff. And so I would not hesitate to cross party lines when the situation called for it.
Thank you. The next question is for that of the Vermilion County Clerk race. Explain your perception of what the clerk's office does and what your plans are for the office in the next 4 years should you win. And we'll begin with Kathy Jenkins.
Well, as I mentioned in my opening, I want to continue with the technology that we can use to make things more efficient and effective. We want to continue with implementing voter registration. We're trying to get new voting machines in the next couple, 3 years. Ours are getting quite aged, and we need to take a look at that from a financial perspective. And I think we need to continue on with our seminars of working with the counties and the other districts that don't understand the processes of budgets and levies and educate them so that they will know best what's for their people.
Thank you. Mary Catherine?
So the functions of the county clerk are to write and maintain the county board minutes, also the elections and voter registrations, to handle the vital records, birth certificates, death certificates, as well as compute the tax rates for the and handle the redemption of the delinquent taxes. Now, I've mentioned before, one of my passions for this office is to increase our outreach and to increase the voter participation in this county. We would like to see more young people come to the fray. We would like to see more inactive voters come out and register and use their voice in our democracy. I will also rely on the experience of the people who are in the office to make sure that our records are kept organized and that we have a courteous, efficient office that people can come in times of grieving to get death certificates, to get birth certificates, and that they will be greeted with a smiling face and handled efficiently. Thank you.
Thank you. Back to the Illinois District 15th representative race to the U.S. House of Representatives. With Danville having a regional airport, a great community college, train traffic, and being 30 minutes from the U of I, why doesn't Danville have more industries? And what will you do to help bring industries not only to Danville, but the entire district? And we will begin with Mr. Gaither.
Investment is one of the key issues with, you know, all of the economic lag that we have across the district. You know, up here it's really obvious, just like it is across the district. What we need is, you know, our roads to be upgraded. We really need to, what I would see is microloans, which has been very successful, and also kind of back up mutual funds that, this has worked in Decatur. It's called the Milliken Fund, where area residents with money and resources as well as businesses, they pool their funds, and then people that want to start businesses can get funding for their startups. And I would say for the federal government, we could actually do an FDIC kind of insurance program for those funds so that people don't lose their money. This is a way you can inject some energy into the economy. Also, we need some real people in the trades. We talked to a gentleman in Collinsville. He's 23. He's the youngest person on every single work crew he's been on. And the next oldest are in their 30s. There's hardly any of them, and everyone else is in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. If we're going to rebuild this country, we really need to get training, vocational training, into every single high school and every single community college. And we need to make that free, because those are higher paying jobs, union paying jobs, and we have to support that effort, because there's about 20, 30, 40 years of infrastructure issues that we need to rebuild this country. And if we don't do that, we are going to be behind the rest of the world. You know, in some areas of this state, it's a third world country. You know, just go down all the way south to the bottom of, to Ohio and Wabash where they meet. And you'll see devastation. The economic and political isolation down there is serious. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Detmers?
Well, Mr. Gaither and I will agree, and I think a congressman would agree with Mr. Gaither, that we do need workforce development with training back, and that is one of the issues with most of these companies. There has been the reauthorization of the workforce, of the grants for the workforce development, and I think one of the issues is we have too many different agencies doing it, and we have to combine that into one place so people have a more streamlined approach to that issue. We very successfully, the congressman very successfully worked with North America Lighting and Lakeland Community College to provide workers for a program when they were expanding. I think we can continue to do those type of programs, but I think the best thing that you can do for jobs is you make an economy that's working and robust, where people want to invest. The tax cuts, I think, have helped immensely and will continue to help. Thank you.
Thank you. Back to the Illinois District 104th race. How will you address the issue of public pensions, specifically double dipping by retirees and balancing the deficit? And we will begin with Mr. Marin.
You know, I like to use the analogy with the public pensions that it's kind of like not paying your credit card bill. It's what the state has done for years. And if you don't pay your credit card bill, the bill gets higher every month. And pretty soon it's eating up more and more of your household income. Well, that's basically what's happened. So I think one thing that we need to do is we need to prioritize spending that and reversing that trend by basically making a larger payment to the pension system. And that's basically, if you had a problem like that in your household, by dedicating more money up front to lower that, eventually that payment gets lower and lower every month, and you get it back into a more manageable situation. So I think that's the approach that we need to take. We just need to reverse course. We do have a little bit of time on our side because although the pension liability is huge, you know, it's not going to come due immediately. So if we reverse course, we can get back on track, we can get back in front of it, and we can keep the promises that we made to people in the Constitution and the promises that were made as people made these life choices about retirement.
Thank you. Ms. Cunningham?
The pensions that we have for our employees are a contract. We agreed that we would pay our employees the wages that they made, and we also promised a pension. We can't go back on that, regardless of whether they earned one pension or 3 pensions. They earned it as part of their compensation package. Now, how do we pay for it? First of all, we are currently making our pension payments. That's the good news. We've been doing that since the budget impasse ended. We did it through much of the budget impasse. While others starved, pensions were getting paid. We still have a big gap, and we're going to have to continue to stay the course, paying our pensions, and then at this point, I don't think we have enough revenue to ramp up pensions, payments to the pensions, but we need to stay the course where we're at right now.
Thank you. To the Vermilion County Clerk's race, how can we maintain the bottom line and increase fees at the same time? We will begin with Mary Catherine Roberson. My apology again. The question is that holding the bottom line in the office is difficult to do when fees are being increased. How will you address these issues that have occurred in the past? I rephrase the question.
Well, I will concede that I've never been in the county clerk's office, so some of the specifics of holding the bottom line, I will rely on the expertise again of the people who are in that office. But some of those fee increases did hurt some of our, some of our population. So I would work with the people in the office to find out the most cost-effective and efficient way to offer the services of the county clerk's office.
Ms. Jenkins, thank you. We'll rephrase the question again. In regard to holding the bottom line in the office of county clerk, how is that doable when fees are being increased? And how will you address that in the future?
Not sure I understand.
They're questioning the increasing of fees in the office and holding the bottom line.
Well, in holding the bottom line for our office, we are constantly looking at ways to make sure that we can stay on the bottom line. We pick up some of the work ourselves. We don't always contract things out. We're able to keep bottom line that direction. And as far as the fees, I'm not sure that our fees have not been raised for, we initially increased our fees for birth certificates and death certificates. They had not been raised for probably 20 years, at least 20 years. And so that is not an everyday thing and doesn't occur often. And so probably we're going to hold the bottom line with those fees at this point.
Thank you. One final question for the Illinois District 15th representative to the U.S. House. And we will begin with Deb Detmers. How often do you plan, or will the representative plan to hold town halls in your district? How often will that occur?
The congressman doesn't hold town halls, and I'm pretty sure the person who asked that knew that answer already, but that's okay. He does not do town halls. What he does is one-on-one meetings and office hours. We do have an office here in Danville. It is open 5 days a week. It is in the county courthouse. We share that office space with them, and we are there. And we also do traveling help desk. And Mr. Gaither's actually seen me at some traveling help desk, so that where the staff goes around to little towns. And this week, for example, I will be in Ashmore, Sullivan in his hometown, and in Shelbyville. So he's out there all the time. If people want to talk to the congressman, they know we will get you to talk to the congressman. He sees meet people in his offices all the time, and he makes phone calls to people all of the time. So we'd be happy to talk to him, whether you agree with him or not, don't agree with him. He talks to people all the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gaither?
Okay, yes, he'll never hold a town hall, and it's probably why he's not here tonight, but it's hard, So I actually, somebody made a request that I do only 4 town halls. Well, I said 4 town halls isn't enough. I'll do 8 town halls a year. I've already done 10 town halls in just the last 3 months. I've got another 10 scheduled before the general election. So if you want accessible representation, I'm your candidate. Another thing, and these traveling help desks are very nice, and Deb has always been very respectful. But I have requested a meeting with John Shimkus. It was probably two and a half years ago, and I've never seen John Shimkus except for at a Facebook event. I think representation is about you. The people don't own, the representatives and politicians and certainly big business don't own Congress. They don't own the courts, and guess who owns them? The people. So take back ownership over Congress, take back ownership over your courts, okay? Thank you.
That concludes the first half of our meeting this evening, the open forum, and the candidates will be available to answer any of your questions out in the lobby. We'll take a 10-minute break and resume in 10 minutes. Thank you.